Hello everyone, sorry about the delay. My name is Eden. Welcome to today's live class. So I can see there are some of you in the Zoom room now. Welcome Nitesh, Mahesh, Shalendra, Anga. Welcome everyone. Hope you've all had a good day. Welcome Krishmita. Hi. Krishmita says hi to everyone in the Zoom room. Hi Gurpreet. Hi Andrew, you can join us in the Zoom room.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening.
Hi Shalendra, how are you?
I am all right, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. Did you have a good day?
Yeah, ma'am. Average day.
An
Nothing
average day?
special. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a usual
Good.
day. Yeah.
Okay. And did you watch the football, Shalendra? Soccer?
No, ma'am. I did not watch the match, but I have been keeping an eye on all the developments of this FIFA World Cup. And now I think Spain, yes, Spain is in finals, I think.
I think it's France and Argentina.
Yeah,
Not
France and Argentina. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I also haven't watched the last few.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, great.
But
So
ma'am,
some of you.
Morocco's win was in the news for a long time because yeah, ma'am, media dubbed this win as a win of Arab football world. Yeah.
Yeah. Some great idioms you just used there, Shalendra, keeping an eye on something, sort of being aware of it and dubbing something, calling it something great. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think it was a nice historic moment. Arab countries and African countries too. I think it was also the first time, maybe not the first time, but it was definitely sort of a celebration for African countries. So it's nice to see different countries making it to the last rounds. Did anyone else watch the football? Soccer? I think somebody was it Nitesh? You also mentioned Argentina. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, ma'am.
Good. Have you had a good week, Nitesh?
No, ma'am, I haven't watched football.
Okay. Were you also keeping an eye on the scores on the countries that went
ma'am.
or not really?
Yeah, I heard news from the All India radio station about the football match which is going on in Qatar.
Okay. So maybe not that popular at the moment, but it's on the news.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Ananya. Welcome back. It's been a while. How are you?
I'm great, ma'am. How are you?
Good. I'm good. How have your studies been going?
Yes, ma'am. My final exams are finished.
That's fantastic. How have you been celebrating?
See you after a long time.
Yeah. How have you been celebrating, or have you been celebrating the end of exams?
Yeah, it's going well. Just waiting for the results.
Okay. Good luck. I hope they go well. And welcome to everyone else who's joined. So today we're not going to be doing a football topic. I was just interested to know who joined. We're going to be thinking about solar energy, but if anyone has been watching any other news lately, I know Shalendra, you always bring up interesting topics. So if there's something else that people want to bring up, let me know. But we're going to think about solar energy. Has anyone been reading any news articles, or you have seen any news about solar energy or green energy, fossil fuels? Has anyone seen any news stories at the moment? Yes, Shalendra?
Ma'am, yesterday I saw one news related to nuclear fusion energy. In US,
and what was that?
Yeah, ma'am, in US, scientists were able to produce energy from controlled nuclear fusion explosion. And ma'am,
Okay.
yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, there is a difference between nuclear fusion and nuclear fusion reaction and nuclear fission reaction. In nuclear fission reaction, the particle is divided into smaller particles, but in fusion, a smaller particle fused and they make bigger particle. So, ma'am, in this experiment, scientists were able to produce more energy than they induced energy.
Okay, that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So, ma'am,
Very
it
cool.
is very good. It is a good news for climate activists and for climate also, because if scientists are able to produce energy with the help of this nuclear fusion reaction, then there is no need to be dependent on fossil fuels.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And what about the safety issues involved? Do you know anything about that?
Yes, ma'am. Because, ma'am, we know that these nuclear reactions are very radioactive. So I think we should be very careful with this technology. It is, yeah, ma'am. Because, ma'am, we saw during, ma'am, during last tsunami waves in Japan, the Fukushima nuclear power plant was destroyed because of tsunami, and there was a threat of nuclear radiation among people. So, and ma'am, right now there is a threat of nuclear radiation in Ukraine also because of the war. Zaporizhia nuclear power plant.
That's right. So creating this energy, it's great. They produce a lot of energy. It's clean in some senses. It's not fossil fuels. How renewable it is, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, there's the danger, the issues, the safety issues. So that's something to think about. Is this something that you think will be the future, that will power humans in the future?
Ma'am, the need of the hour is how quickly we can convert our energy from fossil fuels to renewable energy. This is the need of the hour. If scientists are able to produce energy from nuclear fusion quickly, then it is good for the environment. And this is not the case in solar energy, because ma'am, lots of countries, they don't get sunlight during the most of the year.
That's true.
In that case, nuclear fusion process or fission process is helpful to save our climate.
Yeah, well, we're going to read about something that might help the fact that some countries don't get a lot of sort of solar energy transmitted right down to where humans are living. But there is a technology that the European Space Agency is exploring, which we're going to think about in a moment. Also recently, I heard that in Namibia, so a country that borders Africa, they're going to put in I think the German government is investing $9 billion for solar panels, and then somehow they would transfer the energy, I guess, in batteries or hydrogen power as well. I think is something they're also investing in. So actually Germany is investing in Namibia because they have so much sun. And so I guess there are ways around it.
Yeah, ma'am. And ma'am, and one more interesting fact with the solar energy, ma'am, there is a solar alliance. It is a group of countries who are motivated to switch to solar energy. So, ma'am, India is the head of that solar alliance.
Oh, okay. I didn't know much about it. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And have they got any plans, or is Is it in its initial phases, or have they got any projects planned?
Ma'am, I don't know much in detail, but ma'am, this is the group, the countries in this group, they have placed voluntary targets, and yeah, and they want to switch their energy output from fossil fuels to solar energy.
Okay, very interesting. So some interesting developments happening around the world. Well, the first question I have for everyone, maybe you can mention if you know any stories of solar energy or other kinds of energy, but is it possible to completely end our use and our reliance on fossil fuels? What do we think about this? Is this possible? Will it happen? Does anyone have any opinions that they would like to share, maybe in the chat as well? Do we think this will be our future? In the future, will we completely eliminate, completely stop using fossil fuels? Or do we think that people will still maybe use a little bit of fossil fuels? Maybe in 50 years' time, but we still have to rely on a little bit of oil. What do you think? Does anyone have any opinions on this?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think, Shindra?
Ma'am, as we know, fossil fuels are very bad for the environment. So, ma'am, slowly countries are moving from fossil fuel based energy to renewable energy like solar energy, wind energy. But it is very difficult to switch from fossil fuel to renewable energy because it takes lot of money and skills. Developed countries have money and skills, and but ma'am, on earth there are more developing and underdeveloped countries than developed countries. So for these countries it is very difficult to switch from fossil fuel to renewable energy because it takes a lot of money, and if and ma'am, crores millions of people are dependent on this sector, so it is very difficult for developing and underdeveloping countries to switch. So ma'am, uh, uh, if if uh, if we want to completely become independent from fossil fuels, then there should be a consensus among all the countries. And ma'am, it is a ma'am a transactional relationship. Developed countries can pay developing countries for this switch, and in turn developing countries can pledge to reduce their dependency on fossil fuels. So ma'am, it is a this is the situation right now.
Okay, yeah, you brought up some interesting issues. So the idea that people still have their jobs in sectors which rely on fossil fuels, maybe as newer generations train in clean energy, maybe that will be easier. But right now it's difficult to completely change the workforce or change what people are doing. Some really interesting ideas, Shalendra. Thank you. Manisha, welcome. What do you think about this issue?
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Evening, how are you?
I'm good, ma'am. Thank you.
Good. So what's your opinion? Do you agree with Shalendra that it might maybe take a while, or it's a very difficult transition?
Okay, first let me question, is it possible to end our use of fossil fuels? Yes, ma'am. I think it is possible because ma'am, I think solar energy is means totally free. We get solar energy at, means for free of cost, and I think we should use it. And ma'am, in our village, many farmers are using solar energy in their farms, and means because of that they can reduce their electricity bill as well. And in our house as well, we use solar heaters, and we use solar lamps and many things. And if we use electric cars which will run on solar energy, and then we can reduce means fossil fuels. And I think if everyone will use solar energy, if everyone will give first preference for solar energy, then it will happen.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the need for people to actually want to make the changes. You gave examples of farmers in India. Are those farmers right now who are using solar panels, or are those things that you would like to see happen?
Yes, ma'am. Hello?
Do you know any farmers who are using solar panels right now to help, or using solar energy?
Yeah, they are using solar pump and solar batteries, and means there are different types of means क्या बोलेंगे उसको, tools they are using on solar energy, like sprinklers, means whatever, means whenever they need electric energy, they are using solar energy instead of electric.
Okay, very interesting. So people are already making the transition. I have the examples. That's
Yeah,
really fascinating.
yeah, ma'am. And in village, means in village, most of the people are using nowadays because they want to reduce their electricity bill. Because we know in village there are means no business and no jobs, and these people who are living in village, they don't have enough money. That's why they are using solar energy.
Okay, that's great. So that's a little bit of a different example from what Shailendra mentioned. Shailendra, you mentioned that maybe for poorer people or people in developing countries, it might be a little bit more difficult, but maybe if there is cost saving in the long run, as Manisha says, it's cheaper, maybe it can be an help, an aid to developing countries, and also people who maybe can't afford to use fossil fuels. Shailendra, which side would you agree with? You gave examples that it's difficult to maybe stop using fossil fuels completely, but do you think even if it's a long timeline, it will eventually happen?
Yeah, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is possible.
Okay.
Because, ma'am, we have seen in COP conferences, and ma'am, because of this ever growing pollution, now, ma'am, countries and their heads and their parliamentaries, they have understood that we have to switch to renewable energy. So, ma'am, in long run, I think we will be able to become fully independent from fossil fuel.
Okay, great. And you've given the example of the International Solar Alliance, and you said India and France founded those. Interesting. Great to see countries working together that are not necessarily neighbors. Maybe an example of how ending fossil fuels can make countries work together. So great examples, Manisha and Shailendra. Shailendra, you mentioned that it's difficult because of jobs. Maybe it'll make the transition harder. Does anyone else have any? Yeah, Shailendra?
Yeah, ma'am, because ma'am, India is a developing country, and ma'am, the energy which we produce by coal is cheaper than other forms of energy. That's why, ma'am, our energy minister in recently held COP conference, he told he said that it is difficult for India to completely switch or to make big voluntary targets. So yeah, ma'am.
So India already has the infrastructure for coal.
Yeah.
So that's why. Okay.
Because, but still, ma'am, India is slowly growing, and we are adopting solar energy. And ma'am, now ma'am, we mostly get ma'am, our major part of energy comes from fossil fuel, but ma'am, slowly we have been increasing our energy from solar energy.
Okay, very
Yes.
interesting. So there are things that might make the transition longer, but people are already making the transition. Fascinating. Thank you, Manisha and Shailendra, for sharing your great ideas and examples. Vidya Sagar, welcome. Do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome
We have,
back, Vidya
we have,
Sagar.
yes, ma'am. We have already started a step towards this transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy pool. Renewable, it doesn't mean only solar energy. It may be wind energy and other forms of energy. But yes, it will take a long time to end use of fossil fuels. Maybe 2040 or after 50. But as we have begun in this direction, then definitely it will achieve one day. But yes, maybe not completely, but more or less it will be achieved, but it will take a longer time, definitely.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, so maybe in an amount of time that's hard to imagine, maybe in a few hundred years we'll definitely have, but maybe not in the near future.
In the long run,
great
this wind energy and solar power energy, that these two renewable energy sources will play a major role, because hydropower we will not get all the places, but wind energy and solar energy, it will be available in almost all places. So it will definitely replace this fossil fuel man in the long run.
So we might not completely stop using fossil fuels, but our main source of energy will be greener and cleaner and more sustainable. Great
Solar
points.
and wind power will play a major role in the future.
Okay, and you mentioned hydro too.
And another thing is that, ma'am, European countries are facing energy crisis today because of the Russian-Ukraine war, and they are shifting their energy resources towards fossil fuels. Recently in the news, I have watched in Down to Earth that Columbia coal mine opened in UK, coal mine, ma'am.
Okay, that's very interesting. I didn't know that news. So we're kind of switching back to other forms.
Yeah, ma'am, because of the energy crisis, and Germany extremely affected by that Russia-Ukraine war, and they are shifting, especially European countries, in the fossil fuel energies.
So in some ways, more investment has been made in greener source of energy, but also in other fossil fuels. Interesting. I think the war with Ukraine and Russia is one of the reasons that Germany invested in Namibia as well, in solar panels and hydrogen power. So maybe it's forced some use of other fossil fuels, but also more investment in greener energy. Maybe in the short term, coal will be used, maybe not in the long term. What do you think, Natasha? Do you think this coal mine will operate?
Yeah, ma'am, it's the first mine which is open in UK, and it will for 30 years, ma'am.
Very interesting. Great example, Nitesh.
And yeah, it helped the UK to produce steel.
What do you think in the long term? Do you think?
Yeah, ma'am, long term countries will shift for renewable energy sources, but all the efforts that made by countries, it's not sufficient at the time that we completely shift on renewable energy. Recently in the COP27 or in COP27, Indian energy minister said that it is not possible that India totally shift their energy resources to renewable energy resource like wind, solar, or nuclear energy. Yeah.
So maybe they're making realistic goals, but is that also a sign that they're wanting to move?
It's affecting the SDG goals, Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, we have to maintain 1.5 degrees temperature of the earth. Yeah. And India has a goal of by 2030 half of the energy which India will use by 2030 will come from renewable energy sources, but at the current time seems impossible.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's kind of a point for both sides. Yes, transition to end fossil fuel use, but still have to be reliant on fossil fuels to some degree. Interesting, Nitesh, thank you. And Andrew, I think you had your hand up before. Do you still have something you want to mention?
Ma'am, I think eventually we will stop using these fossil fuels as a source of energy, because these fossil fuels are at the verge of depletion. So we have to stop using them. I think it's high time we find some other source of energy.
Yeah, good point. At some point it will run out, so we can't actually use them forever. We will have to, if we use it up to the point of depletion, as you said. If it's almost finished, we have to stop using them. Okay, some really interesting ideas. So let's think for a little moment about different kinds of energy. So here are some. You might have others that you want to mention. What do we think, if we had to rate these, what would be the best? Shailendra mentioned nuclear power. There were safety issues. What do we think is the best? It could be for reasons of safety, or for reasons of efficiency, or for reasons of availability. Do we have an opinion on these different forms? Yes, Shailendra?
Ma'am, solar energy is I think is the best form of energy, because it is clean and it is an abundant source of energy. Yeah,
Okay.
and ma'am, ma'am, lots of countries and mostly, ma'am, tropical countries. Okay, those countries which are situated on the Tropic of Cancer, they can get immense benefit from solar energy. Yeah, and ma'am, the only thing that is creating hindrance is the storage of solar energy, because we are receiving solar energy, but it is very difficult to store the solar energy, and the transmission issues. So if we are able to resolve these issues, then it is good for humanity, and it will be good for Earth also.
Those are great points. Yeah, we need more developments in batteries and maybe other technology to store solar power. It's a big issue with a lot of power. Yes, Manisha? What do you think?
I think solar energy, and like Shailendra means I completely agree with him. Means as earlier I said, farmers are using solar energy, but ma'am, in a rainy season they are facing problems, because we can see in rainy season there is no sun and many times, and so I think if we can store solar energy, then it will be more helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, there's more than enough in the summertime, but then when it comes to winter, Vidya Sagar, what do you think? Do you also agree? Is solar your favorite, or is there some other energy form that you like?
Yes, ma'am. what I want to say is solar energy, we cannot store directly solar energy, but we can indirectly store this. That runoff river system, if anyone heard about this, runoff river system is during daytime, we will pump out this river water to any dam or reservoir by using solar power. And during night, the same water stored in a reservoir, we can use it during night as hydropower energy.
Okay, so it's
during daytime,
combining hydro.
Yes, it can be converted to hydro energy during night. That's solar energy. So this by this method we can use it during night.
Right.
And
That's a
as I
great.
already told, wind power we can use it during